The All Things TechIE podcast. I'm Justin Dawson. Have you ever felt that you're just lost, totally and utterly disorientated, even in an urban environment? That's happened to me where I got totally disorientated in a housing estate and couldn't find my car. A great app to download is What Three Words. It even works offline, and I talked to one of the team involved in What Three Words. Check it out. Episode 17 of the All Things Techie podcast.
The All Things Techie podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie.
Essentially, the kind of ambition behind the company is to become the global standard in the way that people communicate a location. Right now, people really struggle to talk about specific locations, and it's not an issue that, often crosses your mind on a daily basis. But when you think about the fact that every country in the world essentially has a different way of talking about location and a different kind of address system, actually it can be very challenging for people to communicate location. But yeah, that's the sort of ambition, kind of what drives the company, if that makes sense.
So give me a little bit of history then. How did the whole project come around?
Sure. So the company was founded in 2013. The CEO is a guy called Chris Sheldrick, who used to work in the music industry, essentially organizing events, arranging the music for festivals, for weddings, that kind of thing. And obviously, one of the challenges that he faced was that most festivals and most weddings take place in quite obscure locations, often, in the middle of a field or in the countryside. So he had a real challenge actually explaining to bands where to come in order to sound check or in order to set up for the gig. So he got really frustrated with this. Unable to send regular street addresses, he resorted to sending latitude and longitude coordinates to these bands to sort of help them find the right spot. He basically had a challenge there though as well, in the fact of a lat long coordinate is 16 digits. So there was one occasion where he was organizing a wedding an hour north of Rome in Italy, sent a lat long coordinate to the band in order to get them to turn up in the right place. He got a call 2 hours after the band was supposed to arrive for the sound check to say, not sure we're really at the right location. We're in a field, but I can't see any sign of a wedding. It turned out that the band had got one of the digits in the 16-digit string wrong, and had ended up an hour north of Rome, not an hour south of Rome.
Wow.
So yeah, that's sort of where the idea came from. He then teamed up with one of his friends who was a mathematician to basically realize the idea, realize that it would be possible just using dictionary words to assign every 3 meter square on the entire planet a unique 3-word address.
And that this is what really is outstanding. It's global. So, and even just moving around on my map, I was like, it is actually every 3 meters.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, as you say, the entire surface area of the planet has been carved up into this grid of 3 meter by 3 meter squares, and every single square has its own unique 3-word address. Whether you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or in London, wherever you are.
And the nice thing about this is, because it is every 3 meters, it works well with mountain rescue teams. You have a lot of the UK mountain rescue teams that have jumped on board and told people to download this.
So actually at the moment, it's mainly the emergency services outside of mountain rescue who are making full use of the system. So mainly that's the fire and rescue, police, ambulance and coast guard. mountain rescue are obviously capable of using it. They do tend to operate pretty well, given that they're experts in map reading, just using OS grid references. The main kind of use case is for a member of the public who may not be so well versed in a grid reference, who can basically use this system to explain to the emergency services exactly where they are.
And I noticed on the app now, am I correct in saying that you can ask it through the camera to hold it up into a location, and it will actually navigate to what the 3 words of what you're looking at?
Yeah, precisely. So this is something that was rolled out in the last app update, where it's called OCR. And what it allows you to do is, as you say, scan a 3-word address. It will recognize that as a location. And then you can plot that on the map and navigate to that precise point.
That is really, really cool. Now, people will ask, well, what if you don't have internet connectivity?
So,
right?
Yeah, of course, it's one we're asked a lot. The app works totally offline.
Right.
So you do not need a data connection in order to find your 3-word address of your current location or to enter a 3-word address. The only thing that wouldn't work is the map layer that sits behind the grid of 3 meter squares, because that runs off Google's API.
Oh, right. So very good. Because I was going to ask you that. I said that looks very Google-like.
Yeah.
And Google are happy to be on board on this?
Well, so it's what 3 words is not a mapping system, and it's not a navigation tool. It's fundamentally just an address.
Okay.
So it's really map agnostic. You can use whatever map you want to. So if you go onto the map site, for example, you can switch to any other kind of map that you prefer, whether it's Mapbox, OpenStreetMap, Google Maps, whatever you like.
That is really good. Now, I have to ask the question of this app is free of charge to download. How does this company make money?
Of course.
Yeah.
So we make money as an organization by licensing the technology that sits behind our app to other companies and organizations who want to use what 3 words to improve their own products. So essentially, because what 3 words is just an address, it can be used by lots of different organizations or businesses in lots of different sectors. One of the main areas that we focus on, and one of the main industries that we work in, is automotive. So working with big car brands on things like improving voice navigation in their cars. We also work with logistics and e-commerce companies, essentially helping people get parcels delivered to the exact right location, helping those logistics company cut down in last mile delivery costs. So essentially, those companies use our technology to, for example, sell more cars or to improve efficiencies in the last mile. And we would charge them a certain amount for using that technology, much in the same way that Google might charge for their Places API, or similar to that.
I must say, once I downloaded the app, it asked me, like, what language do you want to use? So I'm guessing if you're over in Italy and you're Italian, it's going to give you Italian words, or is it all the English prefix?
So they're essentially, as I mentioned at the start, we want this to become the global standard in the way people talk about location. Obviously, to be able to do that, people need to be able to use it in their own native tongue. So we started in English, covering the entire world with English words. We've now made this available in 37 other languages.
God, that's amazing. Yeah,
absolutely. And each word list, each version of the grid is its own language. So if you switch it into English, the entire world will be covered in English 3-word addresses. Equally, if you switch it to Japanese, Swahili, Spanish, whatever language you prefer, it will cover the entire world in that language.
I really think that this will solve me so many issues, because I was telling our listeners earlier on in the podcast that my sister sent me out to get to she was picking up a second-hand scooter for her daughter, and I went into a housing estate. I used Google Maps. Sorry, Google. I used Google Maps. It said 200 meters away. I parked up the car. I started walking, and then lo and behold, I noticed it's not 200 meters away. It was sending me in circles. I asked for directions, got sent somewhere else, and then totally and utterly lost my car. I had to call. I had to call my wife out to find it.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good example of problems that people face on a daily basis, but just don't understand that there's a potential solution out there. You know, my parents live in the middle of the countryside in the UK, and getting things delivered or getting people to turn up at their house is an absolute nightmare, because their postcode in a rural part of the UK covers a very large area. So actually just typing that postcode into Google Maps isn't that helpful for anyone trying to find them. And I mean, obviously a rural area is a very clear example of some of these issues. Many places simply don't have addresses. So if you're out on a walk in the middle of the countryside, you need to tell your friends where you've seen the best view, or perhaps have an accident and need to tell the emergency services exactly where you are. Often that's really difficult to do because those places simply don't have a regular street address.
Oh yeah, no, it's the exact same in the west coast of Ireland, where my mum's side of the family is from Roscommon, and they just recognise it by fields and lampposts, I think, or moving sheep at that stage. I'm sorry, that's a terrible stereotype, but it's true.
No, for sure. And I mean, we're talking now about places which do have very good address systems, like the UK and most places in Europe. We're lucky to have a really good system of addressing. But for the vast majority of people, particularly living in developing countries, often there is simply no address infrastructure whatsoever. There's no street names, there's no system of postcodes. So again, for people living in areas like that without any kind of regular street address, even having access to things that we take for granted can be really challenging.
It's such a worthwhile cause that you have set up this company. What you must have had some really proud moments with this app, especially with, like you're saying, it's global. You could have it in villages in far out desert areas. But what couple has really stood out for you?
Sure. So I guess in terms of milestones for the company and things that we're really I suppose humbled by. Obviously, we were started in 2013. We're now about 110 people globally. But obviously, throughout that, there have been some kind of highs and lows. I think one of the highlights was a few years ago, we were approached by the Mongolian government to help them essentially create an address infrastructure. And that was essentially the first time that What3 Words had been used on a national basis as an addressing system. So one of the largest office we have outside of the UK is actually in Ulaanbaatar. And Mongolia is one of the 8 or 9 countries in the world where you can send a letter to a 3-word address. So that was very much kind of a high point for us. I'd say more recently as well, the work with emergency services in the UK has been incredibly exciting and incredibly humbling. Obviously, to see the use cases come through where it's been used to help the emergency services get to incidents more quickly, and on occasion even save lives, has been really, really inspiring.
And so what's your role in the company? Do you do any development yourself?
So I work in the partnerships team, and essentially our role is to help businesses and organizations make use of the system. As I mentioned, we work in a very diverse range of industries, ranging from automotive right the way through to humanitarian, NGO, and emergency services sectors. Over the past 6 or 7 months, My focus really has been on the UK and helping those emergency services who are now using the system get set up.
That's super. Now, if people want to go and download this app, it's available for Apple and Android, but you also have a website. What3words.com is the best place probably to get you.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the one.
The All Things Techie podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie.